We're still waiting for the Toronto Blue Jays to make a move here, but there are some under-the-radar trades that they could make this offseason that would be very shrewd and make this team a lot better. So we'll go over a few of those. And happy Dalton Varsho Day. It's the 1-year anniversary of the Jays getting Varsho from the Diamondbacks. So we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, two more sleeps before Christmas here, so happy holidays to you and yours. Merry Christmas, wherever you are celebrating. And Nick, we're waiting for the Blue Jays to make a move. I doubt it's going to come within the next 2 days. We got to believe that Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro are enjoying the time with the family, and you know, they had a long couple of weeks there with the Shohei Ohtani saga, so I think they've earned maybe a nice drink and a nice little relaxation time. But it's time to get back to work once Boxing Day rolls around. And these are a few moves that have really come up on our radar, Nick. I've highlighted them. You've highlighted them. I like these moves. I think they're under the radar type of trades that the Jays could make and could definitely help this team become a lot better come next season.
Yeah, there's a bunch of trades, and like you said, probably won't happen before Christmas as much as we all hoped, but before we get into that, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 12,000. About 70% of you guys who are watching aren't subscribed, so scroll down, and if you aren't subscribed, make sure to hit that button. Now, Peter, this is from an article. We covered some of it about a week ago or so. These are not the most fancy moves. Some of them are fancier than others, obviously. We got some new reports yesterday highlighting the Jays have been in contact with Jake Cronenworth, with Michael A. Taylor, a lot of these guys. But Peter, we'll quickly start off with, there's a bunch of these, so I'll kind of be rapid fire. I want to discuss your opinions on a lot of these. And let's just quickly start with the Jake Cronenworth thing, just to get your quick opinion. And this was late last night. The Blue Jays reportedly talked to San Diego Padres about the versatile star, is a stretch in my opinion, but the Toronto Blue Jays and Padres basically were in talks before the Soto trade went down to acquire Jake Cronenworth. Now, we've discussed a trade in the past. This was one on one of the websites. It's Cronenworth for Hagen Dan or Nate Pearson. Not a crazy package. Just get this out of the way. What are your thoughts on this report? What are your thoughts on a potential Jake Cronenworth with the Toronto Blue Jays trade? Obviously, the reason he's negative 34 is because he's signed for 7 more years at about $80 million. But this was an interesting report that dropped yesterday.
Yeah, he's a decent player and definitely very interesting. Fits the mold of that versatility that the Blue Jays are always looking for. And he can do a bunch of different things on that field. He can hit for a little bit of power. He can play some first base, second base, third base, even a little bit of outfield every now and then. So he's a lefty too. So that helps. That helps what the Blue Jays are trying to achieve this offseason. I don't know how realistic it is now that they traded Juan Soto away. They're still trying to compete. They're still trying to be a good team. They're just trying to shed some payroll in the immediate future right here. So that's why they got rid of Soto, who's set to make about $27-ish million next season with the New York Yankees on a 1-year expiring deal. Maybe that's not too attractive to a Padres front office that has a mandate to cut some budgets and cut some payroll here. So I understand that maybe they want to get rid of Soto, but now that Cronenworth is signed to sort of team-friendly deal, I believe it's under $100 million,
80, I believe,
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so $80 million for the next 7 years for a player that's going to be in your lineup every day and that can play multiple positions. Might cost a little bit more than what the trade value machine is putting him at here. So I don't think that deal would get it done. But he's definitely an interesting player, someone that I would want on this Blue Jays team, and someone that would make them a lot better because you wouldn't have to rely on maybe some guys that you don't want in your lineup every day to have to be those go-to guys like Kevin Biggio or Davis Schneider. So I like this trade. I think he's a good player, not a great player, but definitely someone that can be a complementary piece for this Blue Jays team if they were to give up a few more assets.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is that he would not cost very much, obviously, and you have the Jays getting some cash here as well, so you maybe assume that the Padres would send cash in exchange, which, depending on how they want to view that, because they are trying to shed some salary. But I think Cronenworth's an interesting guy. They've been in contact in the past, and it could make a little bit of sense. Now, Peter, here's another trade that I want to get your opinion on. This one's also pretty simple, and a highlighting theme here is we've discussed this tons of time. It's from teams who are, there's obviously some TV deal issues going around. Teams are trying to cut salary. This is Ryan McMahon from the Rockies. he's under contract, which is why the negative 28.5 valuation is because of this. Peter, we talked about him last year around this time. What are your thoughts on McMahon? This would be a Zulueta swap, so you're basically just... Zulueta's still a fairly decent prospect, but he kind of dropped the rankings a little bit. This would be the Blue Jays doing what they do best at this point, at least their best option, which might be taking a player from a team that needs desperately to shed some salary. And McMahon's 28 years old and under contract for 4 years, $56 million.
Yeah, and he's a third baseman as well who hits left-handed. So check, check, check in my book. And he hit 23 home runs last year, but we do have to take that with a grain of salt. He played in Colorado, very hitter mark. I'm not saying that Toronto isn't, but nothing really compares to what you see in Coors Field. So I'd be in on Ryan McMahon for the right price. Yasser Zulueta kind of lost his lust as a prospect here, so I'd be okay with swapping him for Ryan McMahon. It would be definitely an upgrade at the third base position for the Blue Jays. I'm not saying he's that much better than Matt Chapman, but he offers more offensive upside, and that's what we're ultimately looking for here. He's got some decent speed on him as well. Not a burner by any stretch, but can run the bases pretty well. So the Blue Jays always look for guys that can do different things on the field. Ryan McMahon is one of those guys, and I'd definitely be in on him as well.
This is probably among, I guess, realistic possibilities. This one's pretty high on my list. I mean, if you're not signing Matt Chapman back, he's under contract for 4 years, $56 million, which isn't really bad at all, especially given where the market is right now, especially for this offseason. Zulueta, again, maybe he needs a change of scenery, whatever it is. The point is, you don't have to give up very much, and you're getting a very solid third baseman under contract for the next 3 years, so you won't have to have this conversation again. If they get Cody Bellinger, I am more than okay with a trade like this. I would rather this, and again, this begs the question now with Aurelvis Martinez at third base. Maybe they trade him, which hopefully they don't do, but this would kind of shore up the position going forward, and maybe that's an issue for them. Maybe they want to give some younger guys some playing time, but I'm very, very high on Ryan McMahon, and I would be more than happy to get Ryan McMahon, even if he has some of the similar shortcomings that Matt Chapman does when looking at the advanced analytics. Now, Peter, I'll quickly mention a couple guys here before we do wrap up, and this is Christian Yelich and Max Kepler. I'll let you quickly discuss on Yelich. We've discussed Yelich in the past. His name keeps coming up in these trade rumors. What are your thoughts on a Christian Yelich trade? Do you think... Would you rather him over Cody Bellinger? Obviously, you'd have to give up assets in this case. I think I'm more on the Cody Bellinger train, but maybe they re-sign Chapman and go for Yelich.
Yeah, I'm more on the Cody Bellinger train as well, just because Yelich is making similar money, and I think his ceiling isn't as high as what Cody Bellinger can offer to you. But one more guy on the third base front here that I want to mention is Alex Bregman. And we talk about Aurelvis Martinez all the time and how he's coming. It's inevitable that he's going to make his way into this Blue Jays lineup sooner rather than later. So Alex Bregman is interesting to me because I don't know why the Astros would be shopping him. It's weird to me that his name has come up in trade talks here, but apparently they are. I'm not saying the Jays have the assets to get him, but he is an expiring deal, making $20 million next season, and someone that could be that kind of stopgap before Aurelvis Martinez comes up, or even you could entertain the idea of re-signing him. I think he's a really good player. He had 25 home runs last year, put up about a 5-win season, good defense at third base. He can run the bases well. He can drive in runs as well. Let's look at his RBI totals from last year. 98, 93 the year prior, had a couple of 100 RBI seasons. So a bona fide middle-of-the-order bat with unbelievable plate discipline. This guy would make the Blue Jays much better. It would cost a lot to get him, but I think it could be worth it for that 1-year rental and trying to maximize this window that the Blue Jays are getting. But when it comes to Yelich and Bellinger, I'm more on the Bellinger train because Yelich, he's had some injuries.
Also 32.
He's never gone. Yeah, he's 32. He's signed for another 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. So he's never had the same power output that he had in his MVP year. You could say the same with Cody Bellinger, but he looked a lot closer to the MVP type Bellinger last year than Yelich did in his last season. So I'd be on Bellinger if I'm the Blue Jays here.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And Kepler's another guy we kind of discussed. We'll probably have a future video on that, so we'll leave that there. But yeah, I agree with everything, both of them. Bregman, I know his name was flirted in trade talks, and then the GM came out and said they don't think they're going to trade him. But again, I would not be surprised if maybe they do shop him depending how this season goes. He is in the last year of his deal. You can't let players like that go for nothing, and the Blue Jays would be a great fit for them. The question is, if he's not trading him before the season, maybe you look to trade with a different team like the Rockies, who needs to shed payroll. Again, there's also bigger trades we could discuss like Jose Ramirez and stuff, but I think these are more realistic, and I like this McMahon one, and I'm hoping that they go out and do that depending what the rest of their free agency plan is. Maybe they value Matt Chapman more because of his defense. But any quick final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, when it comes to Alex Bregman, I know you don't want to let those guys walk for nothing, but we said the same thing about Carlos Correa, and look how that worked out. He walked, and then they won a World Series the following year with Jeremy Pena at shortstop, who won World Series MVP. So it just goes to show you that you can never doubt the Astros' developmental plan. They always have players coming up in the pipeline, so they can lose Bregman and probably still be a 95-win team and do some damage in the playoffs because they're that type of organization. They've just built a winning culture there that is unmatched by any team in the American League and any team in the major leagues. So I love Bregman as a player. I would be all in on that train. And the Jays need to do something significant. All these minor moves that we're talking about, they're great complementary pieces, Nick, like Ryan McMahon, Christian Yelich to a certain degree. But you got to do something massive if you're the Blue Jays. You can't just wait around and fill your lineup with a bunch of stopgaps that are not going to make your lineup that much better. I mean, we saw how that worked out last year. They got Kevin Kiermaier. He did an admirable job, but they needed more offense from their center fielder, from their everyday center fielder, and they couldn't get it. I mean, he just wasn't that type of player. It was unfair to expect him to be that kind of player. So the Jays need to make a big move for a big-time player, and whether that's on the trade market or the free agent market, it's got to get done soon because the market's going to dry up pretty soon.
Yeah, and hopefully they do make a trade of that caliber or a signing, depending on what happens. That'll wrap the video. Let us know in the comments what your favorite target out of these are. If you want to see a video from yesterday, click on your screen now. We'll see you tomorrow.